All right. Welcome back to Hudgens Talk. My name is Kate Driscoll. I'm the Public Programs Manager for the Hudgens Center for Art and Learning. Today, I'm talking with Jay Edwards. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh my God. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. This is really fun for me to get to talk to you. So will you tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Jay Edwards, and I'm a TV editor most of the time, but I'm also a filmmaker. I made a feature about 10 years ago, and I make shorts and music videos and mostly monster movies or westerns or monster westerns when I can. So yeah, I'm a filmmaker. I'm a filmmaker at heart, but they pay me to edit so far.
Nice. Wait, so how did you get into this? That seems like such a specific thing to do.
Yeah, and I'm even in a sub-genre of editing in that I mostly edit animation.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell into that. Well, I guess I'll just do the whole story from the beginning.
I would love that.
I fell in love with editing in college, back when it was VHS to VHS editing. I went in to edit a project on a Sunday and edited for 12 hours without noticing the time go by. Like I forgot to eat or pee or do anything else. And I changed my major the next day to communications and have been editing ever since. So I figured I should probably do that for a living.
How old were you at the time when you did this project?
Like 19 or 20.
Oh my gosh. And it was just that one experience?
One day, yeah. That one day I just edited and edited and edited. And like, it was, I don't even know, like, it was a really probably dumb project, but it was VHS to VHS. We had 2 tape decks and a controller and a Panasonic controller in between. And so it was very laborious to do laying shots in analog serially. Like you laid shot 1 in and then you laid shot 2 in on your master tape. There was no digital nonlinear editing. So you really had to have the whole thing thought out, and then you were just kind of executing. And then when you screwed it up, you had to go back and redo everything. So it was a very different process then. It took hours and hours and hours, but I just loved it. I loved the puzzle of it, and still do. So yeah, that's when I got into editing and moved to Atlanta. I went to college in Auburn, Alabama. Moved to Atlanta afterwards because a lot of production there, and ended up working for a post house as an assistant, and then moved over to Turner to edit promos, because at the time Turner Broadcasting was TBS, TNT. There was no original programming. It was just making promos for shows or sports. So I ended up doing a lot of work for Cartoon Network. And one of the first long format things I edited was Space Ghost Coast to Coast, which was a late night talk show, but with an animated host interviewing a live action person on a monitor. So that was a weird show to work on. They would do the interview first and then rewrite all the questions, and then have the voiceover artist do all the lines, but then do a bunch of improv. And so in the edit, we'd try to just make all this nonsense make sense or not make sense or whatever was appropriate for the show, for the episode. So that was a real big puzzle to put together, because you're telling kind of broad jokes, but you were also like, because of the way the show was produced, all the animation was already done. And I was just re-editing existing animation to match the new script. I have a clip I can show you what that means.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did that off and on for 5 years. And then when Adult Swim started, I went on to working for Adult Swim full time and did that for a long time.
Oh, I loved Adult Swim. That's what I used to hide that I was watching it.
Sure. People would assume you're a stoner or something.
Well, no, I would watch it when I was living at home, 15 years ago.
Got it.
I had to hide that I was watching it, sure. But it was my secret. Wait, so how did you get into this professionally? Did you have to do internships, or did you just go out and get a job?
I did do an internship. At the summer I was going to intern was a long time ago. And my brother was living in DC, so I was going to go live with him for a summer, so I could live for free. And I applied to 2 internships, one at the Discovery Channel, which seemed really cool. They do a bunch of documentaries. And the other one was at C-SPAN, which seems super bland. I didn't get the Discovery Channel internship, I did get the C-SPAN one, which ended up being way better for what I wanted to do. Discovery Channel, their headquarters in Maryland, doesn't actually do any production. They just are all the business people, and just all, everyone sits in a cube and pushes paper around. No one's actually doing any filmmaking.
Not as hands-on.
No, so that internship would have been super boring. I ended up working in master control at C-SPAN, which runs 24 hours a day and mostly just does reruns. But at the time, somebody has to hit play and stop and put the chyron up at the bottom of the screen. And so I worked in master control from like 4 p.m. to midnight, assisting, the men and women that did that, and also learned how to do some editing there. So that was really cool. It was the summer that Mayor Marion Barry got busted for smoking crack.
I was going to ask you, what were the most interesting things you got to work on?
Yeah, it was that summer. And C-SPAN was the first to show the tapes. Like, they actually had secret camera tapes that got released to the press of him in a hotel room with a prostitute smoking crack. It's insane. C-SPAN made the front page of the Washington Post because to remind yourself when to change tapes or when something's going to happen, they use kitchen timers, digital kitchen timers that are kind of like magneted all over. So you set, okay, this tape is 20 minutes, you set the timer so you know to be ready to do the tape change. Mm-hmm. So anyway, one of the operators dropped the kitchen timer on the chyron, and in the middle of the Marion Barry tape in the hotel room, the lower third said South Lawn, the White House. And it made the paper the next day, and it was like C-SPAN added a bit of levity to the Marion Barry tapes. So yeah, I was there for that. That's kind of the highlight. And then we also did an exchange with the Discovery Channel interns. Mm-hmm. They were all like suits and stuff. I'm glad I ended up wearing it up. So yeah, I interned at C-SPAN of all places, but learned kind of nuts and bolts editing there because they would let you do hands-on stuff. So that was cool. And then I moved to Atlanta and took about 3 or 4 months, but I got a job as a tape operator, gopher at a post house that was doing commercials and promos and stuff like that.
So what would you say has been the biggest, was it your education, or would you say it was more the hands-on work that taught you the most? I feel like I hear really different things from different people.
Most of it was learned. Most of it was on hands at my first jobs. It's kind of being in the right place at the right time, or at least taking advantage of being in the right place at the right time. Because when I started my first job in Atlanta, there were only 2 post houses in the whole city that had Avid media composers, mm-hmm. which was the first and still kind of industry standard nonlinear editing system. And the time I started my first job, there was only 2 in the whole city, and I worked at one of the 2 places. So I worked on that system since version 2. And I ended up being the kind of night manager at my first job. So I would digitize all the footage for the next day's edit sessions overnight. So I learned how the systems worked, and when they'd break, I'd be on the phone with tech support for hours and hours. And so I really learned how those systems worked inside and out. Mostly because I was the only person in the building. And if it didn't get fixed, no one worked the next day.
Yeah, it's like sink or swim.
Yeah. So I was like 22 and like running the night shift.
Do you think it's worth it for young people now to go to traditional, like a 4-year college to learn that sort of stuff? Or in the age of crazy college tuitions and student loan debt and the internet, do you think it's something that people have to do or should do? What do you think about it?
That's a good question. There's certainly, if you want to be a writer, you should go to college and study. If you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, you should certainly do those things. But if you want to work in production, if you want to work your way up, it's an internship process in production no matter what. Everybody starts at the bottom and does a little bit of everything, or should do a little bit of everything to figure out what they're good at or what they like, and then focus on that and work your way up. Like, no matter what you want to do, you still have to like be the assistant for years before you can be the editor, you know? So yeah, like production wise, just go start PAing.
Yeah. I always wonder that. I mean, I do definitely, like you said, think that there are fields, and even in the arts, that I think there are fields where it definitely would, it's going to be necessary for you to get formal training.
Yeah.
But, more and more I do hear people making the argument that weighing the pros and cons of getting a 4-year degree.
Sure. And there are places in production where if you want to be an art director, a production designer, you need to be pretty steeped in art history. So that's one of the roles or cinematography, you need to have a little more formal training. But sometimes not, you just learn on the job and can get there the same, a different way.
Yeah. I mean, I know some people who are in music production, and I would say like a good bit of them just were self-taught and then went to school to sort of hone it. But, I also know people who went to school for music production and just didn't, they had to go learn afterwards, and they were just like, oh my gosh, this is harder than school was, or I'm learning more.
Different.
Yeah. Although maybe, I'm sure you can say that about a lot of professions. I would say about my own, going to school is definitely worth it, but I learned so much more after I left.
Right. And I can't speak to going to film school. That's a different world,
Sure.
So I just got a degree in communications with, 3 film classes and, 1 radio class.
So you're working in production. What's the filmmaking timeline like for you?
I got established at Turner Broadcasting as one of the editors, and I helped organize. I grew Turner Broadcasting's nonlinear editing facilities from like two avids that were in closets and no one knew how to keep them organized, into 5, then into 12, and it kept growing and growing. By the time I left, I think there was almost 20 avids, and a new facility being built. And yeah, it was certainly the future of editing. But at the time I started in '95, it was still new and hard to wrap your head around if you hadn't done it for a while. So after like kind of settling in at Turner, I wanted to go back to making films because I loved editing, but I wanted to edit something where I didn't have to answer to someone else. Because by definition, you're editing on something, you're answering to a director or a producer if you're editing. So I wanted to edit my own stuff. So I started writing and producing and directing in order to give myself something to edit that I could enjoy and have all my own. So I started making short films. I would convince my friends to dress up in costumes, and I would make a monster, and we made monster movies every summer for 3 years. And that was kind of like a bit of a film school for me, because it's one thing to watch a movie and be like, oh, that's how you do it. And then actually have to put a camera in a certain place and make it cut together. That's a completely different, kind of skill set. Plus just playing around with angle, how something is cut together and the music and the sound. And it was all just, super goofy fun, but a real good learning experience for me. So that's called the Monster Trilogy. They're on my YouTube, but they're really silly. But it's just about each one is the same. It's usually like a group of people come together and then a monster shows up and kills them off one by one, and then the movie ends.
I love it.
Yeah, super fun. So we would get together and watch old monster movies, and people would be like, oh, I want to be that character. I want to be the scientist, or, and be like, okay, or whatever. So like my one friend, John Dilling, who's also an editor at Turner Broadcasting, and I've known him forever. He always was like really into it. So he was willing to shave his head and paint himself silver and be the robot in the sci-fi monster movie that we did. So yeah, we would make jetpacks, and I would make monsters out of furniture foam.
Were you into monsters as like a kid?
Yeah, I watched a lot of monsters. I mostly stayed inside and watched TV as a kid. So I'd watch a lot of monster movies. The TV show that shaped my existence is called Creature Feature with Dr. Paul Bearer. So it was a Saturday afternoon double feature of old monster movies, hosted by a creepy guy who would tell lots of bad puns named Dr. Paul Bearer.
Perfect. What more could you want?
Yeah.
So do you have any projects that you've worked on recently that you've been really into or you're working on right now?
Yeah. So from working at Turner as a staff employee, I moved on to Adult Swim and edited Aqua Teen Hunger Force and a bunch of stuff for Adult Swim for many years, and then I did a documentary short with a friend of mine. Decided to challenge myself and see if I could write a feature, and wrote a feature. It's a beach party rock and roll monster movie. And then started showing it to friends that I had made these shorts with. And one of the friends that was acting in the shorts was a producer. She was like, if you can raise this much money, I think we can shoot this. I was like, okay. So we did. I raised some money and we ended up shooting it on film. It's called Stomp, Shout, Scream. And it's about an all-girl rock band who gets stranded in a sleepy southern town in Florida while a monster's on the loose, of course.
I think I may have lived that.
Yeah, sure. So it features the skunk ape, which is the Florida Everglades version of Bigfoot. The skunk ape.
This is a myth that's popular in Florida?
This is a real monster that's popular in Florida. Some would call it a myth.
But, yeah. Sorry. Being too much of a Scully here.
My dad used to take us fishing in the Everglades, and he would try to scare us with stories of the skunk ape. But there's lots of sightings. The summer that we shot, there was a bunch of hurricanes that came through town, and there were a ton of skunk ape sightings up and down Central Florida.
Skunk ape?
Skunk ape.
So what's skunk ape? Or who?
It's like a Bigfoot, but it's not as tall because it's in the Florida Everglades. And apparently you can smell it for miles away because it smells like a wet dog mixed with death.
What happens is it vicious? Is it dangerous?
No, it's pretty skittish.
Okay.
But I took poetic license and made it vicious.
I'm so sick of people smearing skunk ape.
That's right.
And okay, speaking of supposedly mythological creatures, I have heard that you are very into Bigfoot. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm a super Bigfoot fan. Yeah, and I like the real researchers that are trying to find the actual proof that this thing exists, because it would be weird if so many people saw something and it didn't actually exist. I also really like the hoaxes.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, I like them both equally.
Yeah. That's all just fun stuff. Yeah, what's not to like?
Yeah, every state in America has a Bigfoot that has its own name and its own story.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's really fun. Yeah.
I need to get on my Bigfoot research. I have a question for you from Laura Balance. And she wanted to know, what is your favorite amateur Bigfoot short?
My amateur Bigfoot short? Like
Yeah,
short
your
film?
favorite? Yes.
Well, it would be one that I got for my birthday from her. And
she told me a little bit about this. Can you tell people who are watching
Sure. My birthday was 2 weeks ago, and my girlfriend Verdell got all of our friends to wish me happy birthday since we couldn't throw a party. And Laura went out to Bigfoot country near the Bigfoot Museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia, which is fantastic, by the way. The Bigfoot Museum in Blue Ridge is really great. And they have a list of Bigfoot movies on the wall coming in, and Stomp, Shout, Scream is on there. So that's kind of the greatest thing that's ever happened to the film. So she made a Blair Witch style film where they were trying to wish us a happy birthday, but Bigfoot interrupted. It was great.
That's awesome. I have a question for you from one of the, so we're streaming live onto Facebook. We've got some comments in the chat. Peter May wanted to know, in your opinion, is Bigfoot related to the Yeti in the Himalayas?
Well, sure, absolutely they are. Yeah, they're definitely descendants of the same, you know, there's a gap in the evolution of man where there's apes and then there's Homo sapiens, and there's a gap there. I think that's where Bigfoot came from and still survives. And then there's just little packs in every continent. So yeah, I think at least in movies, the Yetis are always super big, but I don't think that's probably true. They're probably small like the skunk apes. But yeah, they're definitely related.
How tall is Bigfoot supposed to be?
They're usually like 7-8 feet tall.
Okay.
At least in the sightings, yeah. Yeah, they're giant.
All right. And so how much of your work, filmmaking, been around like Bigfoot, sort of creatures that have been sighted?
Just Stomp Shout Scream. It was I wanted to make a rock and roll movie. So I started watching rock and roll movies, and I really liked some aspects of the Beach Party movies with, Annette Funicello. And I was listening to, there's an all-girl band in Atlanta called Catfight that was around back then. And they has this really great song that was like a lonesome lament, but it was about syphilis. So I put that song, and in every Beach Party movie, there's a scene after Annette Funicello fights with Frankie Avalon and walks the beach singing a sad song. And I put those two together, and I was like, that's the movie I want to make. I got to write a whole movie in order to get to that moment. So that's what inspired Stomp Shout Scream. And then I kept kind of fumbling around. I was like, where's the tension? Where's the drama? I was like, I have to put a monster in here. So I decided to put the Florida Everglades skunk ape in there.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you recently did a project where you were doing scenes in your living room?
I did. It's actually an Atlanta filmmaker, Brian Lonano, got all of his monster short weirdo filmmakers together to do an Exquisite Corpse short film where each filmmaker does a scene, and then you stitch them all together. And each scene is completely different, but tells the same continuous story. So like one is a sitcom, one is stop motion, one is animated, whatever. So he wanted to retell the story of Frankenstein, and I'm a big Frankenstein fan. So I wanted to be involved. So I contributed some scenes to that, and that was pretty fun. But everybody just did their scene, quarantined in their house. So they're all just kind of like super low budget, but really fun. It's called Quaranstein.
Quaranstein. So can you tell us about your scene?
Oh, sure. I have, when I was a kid, I had a book called, do I have it here? No, it's downstairs. Called Movie Monsters. And I got it in like the bookmobile, and it showed you how to make a Frankenstein mask, like out of a paper bag. You put the paper bag on and cut around, and then paper mache it and paint it and put yarn for hair. So I dressed up that as like a fifth grader. And so when I, 20, 30 years later, I decided to make the same costume for myself. So I've been dressing up as Frankenstein using that same style of costume for the last 10 years or so. So I have a Frankenstein costume at hand at any time. So when he said I need Frankensteins, I was like, I got one. Yeah. I should be involved in this. So I just put on my Frankenstein. One of Verdell's hobbies is special effects makeup. So she did makeup on me to make me look creepy and old. Oh, here comes Buzz.
Hi. Oh, what a sweetie.
There's Buzz.
Oh, wow. That's the most decisive lay down I think I've seen a dog do. Usually it's like they have to do like 5 loops, so they're like, I will lay down here.
I think he's been laying out in the sun, so now he's got to come in and cool off. Okay, so anyway, I have a Frankenstein costume on hand. So my scenes were just to show various Frankenstein doing quarantine activities or social distancing. So I shot a scene of Frankenstein running out of toilet paper, just a scene of Frankenstein doing boring things around the house. I did a scene of him doing a Zoom call with all of his other monster friends,
Oh,
which
awesome.
really took me like 3 days to do because I had to go through clips of like other monsters just staring at the camera and then find a way to loop them.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. That was complicated. And then the last scene, which is a little longer, is Frankenstein like coming up a set of stairs, which is the stairs around my house, and being very creepy. And then he gets stopped and scared because the pizza delivery woman is there.
Mm-hmm.
Then they have a stare off, and then she comes towards him without a mask on, and he freaks out like it's the torch, like it's the mob with torches. And then the pizza's just sitting there, and he takes the pizza inside.
Oh my gosh.
Pretty good.
I love that. That is hilarious. I love the idea of all the monsters zooming.
Yeah, the monster zoom. I bought, I can't remember what it's called. It's called a snorri cam, a sorry cam. It's the brace you put on your chest under your clothes, and then it has an arm sticking out, and you mount the camera on the arm. So I shot it all that way, where I could move around.
Yeah.
The camera was just always pointing at me, so I could shoot it myself.
Stephanie Lloyd wants to know, are you, I'm gonna butcher this last name. Are you a Charles Busch fan? Apparently that's who wrote the Psycho Beach Party play.
I do like Psycho Beach Party. I find it a little shticky. Like when I made my beach party with a monster movie,
Mm-hmm.
like I wanted it to feel just like a beach party movie, which may have been a mistake because the market for beach party movies is not very big. But I do like Psycho Beach Party. It's really fun, but it tends to make fun of those movies, and they're fully like, you should make fun of those movies. Most of them are terrible, but I kind of love them and their terribleness. So it's just not the movie I would have made, but I like it. It's a good question.
I have several movies that I love, not because they are good. I just love them, even though they're corny. And I even like some stuff because it's a little bit campy. Like, I tried to show my friend Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the show from the late 90s. And she was just like, I don't get this. Why do you like this so much? And I was like, this is too corny for you? I think it is just right.
No, that's 50s and 60s monster movies I like. They really hit the spot. They're like 77 minutes. Same thing with film noir. Mm-hmm. They're 75, 80 minutes maybe. They're a straight line. Like there's not a lot of mucking around. Mm-hmm. And in the end, we defeat the monster, but hopefully we've learned a lesson. And like, that's what I want my movies to be. Maybe that's overly simplistic, because once you get to the 70s, horror movies like the monster wins. Like the earth dies, and like everyone dies in the 70s monster movies, because in the 70s it was always like nature's revenge, animal attack movies. Like there's one called Kingdom of the Spiders with William Shatner, and in the end, you zoom out of a painting of an entire town covered in spider webs, and then the credits roll. I'm like, yeah, that's interesting, I guess, but it's no fun to sit through.
But yeah, yes, I know what you mean. My partner loves movies where it is bleak and it's they're beautiful movies. It is art, and it makes me so sad.
I should send him my Lars von Trier box set that I will never watch.
I love it. So what do you think? So you're talking about how they sort of hit the spot of like 77 minutes. I feel like there's so many movies now that are really long. Like I feel like lately, in the past few years, whenever I go to see a movie, I'm not just there for an hour and a half. I'm at least there for 2 hours, like 2.5 hours. Is that
in the middle? You get lost of, why am I here? What are we doing? Mm-hmm. And they have to kind of remind you of what's happening and why you should be interested. I'm like, especially 2-hour comedies are just interminable.
Yeah, how are you really gonna laugh for 2 hours, or do you kind of ride that roller coaster a little quicker? But okay, no, that's interesting. But I didn't know if that was just me thinking that movies are longer now.
Movies are longer, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with a nice epic. Like I love, I've moved on from one genre. I get like everything I have is a genre. There's like this is a Turkish Gamera poster. Like I have a lot of Western wear or Hawaiian shirts. Like everything I do is in some kind of genre. So I really like Westerns, kind of for the same reason. There's the traditional white hat, black hat, good guy, bad guy kind of Westerns, but from the 50s until the spaghetti Westerns hit in the late 60s, all that started getting confused and turned around, and the characters became more and more gray, to where by the time you get to the good and bad, the ugly, they're all terrible. They're all terrible human beings, but you still root for one over the other because he's less terrible. Anyway, there's lots of gray, and like they're talking about other things. It's really about war, blah, blah, blah. So I really like Westerns in that way, and that you have a convention. Like you turn on a Western, you know what you're getting, and then the way it subverts those expectations is super interesting to me. I don't know if that was your question, but I just rambled on, but I thought that was pretty good.
No, that was really interesting. No, my mom's a huge fan of Westerns. So I feel like I haven't seen many all the way through, but I feel like I've sat through like 20 minutes while I was waiting to
watch what you wanted to watch.
As a kid, yeah, and she went, no.
Yeah, and they're certainly problematic. The old Westerns are certainly problematic in the way they treat Native Americans and a lot of other things. But all old movies are of their time. So yeah, that's just part of it.
That's true.
By definition.
But you're going to say that you do like epics, like longer movies. Are there movies, or do you feel like certain genres lend themselves to a longer runtime better?
Yeah, Westerns certainly do. If you're doing something about a whole age of, I just recently got a book about Once Upon a Time in the West, which is kind of an epic, another Sergio Leone. So I'm kind of like analyzing that endlessly. What else? There are some epics that you could essentially turn into a TV series where you only watch the first hour and you watch each hour each night of the week, because although I've found that there's a lot of movies that if I put them on it like a Godzilla movie, if I put a Godzilla movie on home, I'm probably going to fall asleep in it. But if I watch it in the theater, I am riveted.
Yeah.
Some movies that are just meant for theater viewing. Godzilla movies, epics, those kinds of things are like when you can't be distracted and give them all your attention there, it's such a better experience. And that's really what I miss most this summer.
I was just going to ask you that about how, during COVID, we've had several movies that were going to be, box office hits go straight to Amazon, and you can watch it for like $30 or something, which is great because we've all been at home. But what do you think about going forward? Do you hope that continues? Do you not like that trend? Like, are you worried about theaters?
I just want to go back to the theater and watch a movie and eat popcorn. Like, it's just what I do. Like, I'd go out to a movie once a week. Because here I had the New Beverly or the Egyptian or one of, half a dozen other theaters that were either showing indie films or some kind of crazy double feature. The New Beverly would show a crazy double feature 7 nights a week for $8. And it was amazing. Plus, the Alamo Drafthouse opened in downtown LA about a year before COVID hit. And they would do a pre-show, 45 minutes of weird clips that played into the movie you're going to watch. I really miss it. Yeah. It's just too easy to get distracted at home. Like, I really want to fall into a movie and really live it. And you just don't do that like you can in a theater.
I do think that you're right, because when I'm watching a movie at home, I am keeping an ear out for, is the cat on the counter? What's the dog getting into?
Right.
I should be folding laundry while I watch this movie, so it's done.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. You're not totally engrossed, and you're in a totally dark room that's silent.
Right. So, because the full-time job to pay the bills takes up a good amount of my time, my filmmaking the last, I don't know, since I've been in LA has kind of moved to iPhone filmmaking. Because I can just do it myself. I don't have to round up a crew. And it surprisingly looks great. Like I'm still using my iPhone 7. I haven't even upgraded to the 10 yet. But it really looks great. Let me show you something that I've done. I'll just show you the trailer. Share screen. Share and trailer. Well, let me fix that.
No, yeah, no.
Let's stop. Share. Is that working?
Yeah. Wait,
Okay.
and you did that on an iPhone?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So do you have to get like a special equipment or anything that goes with it?
A little bit, but not anything that's like outrageously expensive. I guess I could have like pulled out all my gear, but it's all fits in one bag. That's one camera bag that's this big. The real piece of equipment that makes a difference is a gimbal, which is just a handle, and your phone gets locked in, and it runs on batteries and talks to your phone via Bluetooth, and it works like a Steadicam, a handheld Steadicam. So you don't have any of this shaky cam happening on your phone. And that gives you like, you can kind of shoot anywhere and make it look really professional because you've got this super smooth camera movement. So that's a gimbal. I can't remember what the brand I got, but anyway. And the other thing I got was Moondog. I think it's Moondog makes wide angle lenses that hook onto your phone. And that's what I shot that film, the Condemned. I shot everything on the same lens just because I'm not really a cinematographer. But I just shot everything on the same lens because it looked cool. And yeah, like as long as you're shooting outside, iPhones are way better with sunlight than like trying to light something inside, or lots of darkness in the frame. So it struggles a little bit there. But if you're shooting outside, like it's as good as any DSLR or any kind of other, budget filmmaking tool.
That's really impressive. Well, and how cool is that sort of technology is so accessible? So, I mean, I don't know how much all of that costs, but it's not such a crazy barrier to entry for,
Yeah, it's in the hundreds, not the thousands.
Right. So
yeah, like I think the lens is $150 and the gimbal is maybe $300. And you also need to it becomes more about filmmaking skills than tools, because I'm shooting it all myself, and I'm also playing a character in the first one, so kind of whoever wasn't in the scene had to hold the camera. So it's got to be something really easy and straightforward to be like, hit the button, make sure it's in focus, and point it this direction. And then it becomes more about, and I'm also working with my friends, not professional actors. And there's no crew. The cast is the crew.
Yeah.
As long as everyone's really into it, people get, not everyone was like, half the people thought they were going on vacation and then we're being roped into making a Western. But once we got into it, everyone kind of got into the swing of things and had fun with it. So yeah, I've done that twice. That's you saw that it was a Western trilogy. That's the first one. The first one is done. The second one is in post right now. It's taken a long time to finish. And then the third one is being written.
That is so cool. Yeah. And it's on an iPhone. That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. It just becomes more about how to frame something, how to cut stuff together, you know, how to, tell a story. Which as a director, you don't get to do that often, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You don't get to practice your skills that often until someone's spending a ton of money.
So what are stories, or like, are there stories that you like to be told, or are there stories where you're like, I've seen that before, or is it the way it's told is more important to you?
For sure, there are stories that aren't being. There are lots of styles of stories that aren't being told. I'm doing a Western trilogy of shorts because I've written a Western feature script, so that's kind of, hopefully those will lead into that. We'll see. But I like Western stories, and I like stories about women. I find that more interesting.
Really?
I do. Like the Stomp Shout Scream was about the main actor. The main story was about this all-girl rock band.
Mm-hmm.
It's just more interesting to me.
I wonder why that is. Do you think it's just because you're interested in that sort of perspective, or why is
perspective? It's just nicer to look at on screen if you want to be super basic about it. I don't know. It's just, I feel like there's lots of stories where you just, well, here's what got me here is I started doing iPhone filmmaking 4 or 5 years ago because I could say I sold it to Adult Swim, but with the money they paid me, it's really not selling anything. But anyway, I sold a web series to Adult Swim to be part of a streaming channel they were doing. And so the streaming channel was an alien flipping channels and coming across really weird things. So my channel that he was flipping past was the TCM channel of this weird universe. So I made 10 short films where I recreated scenes from famous movies, but changed the genre. Mm-hmm. So like, I shot a scene from Goonies, but it's a science fiction movie, and instead of going through a well, they had to go through a time portal. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I shot all these in my living room with my phone. Mm-hmm. But I hired my professional actor friends, and we would block and shoot these entire scenes in about 4 to 6 hours on a Sunday afternoon. Mm-hmm. And I did this for 10 weeks. The other thing that I found interesting was I would flip most of my actor friends are women, so I would put them in the men's roles and put the men in the women's roles. Mm-hmm. So I did a scene from Maltese Falcon where Humphrey Bogart confronts the girlfriend who has double-crossed him, but flip the genders, and it's super interesting. Like, women never got the good lines in those films. They were never the stars of those films. I think that's interesting just as an exercise. The channel for Adult Swim never launched, and the films never got seen. They're on my Vimeo if you want to see them. It's called the Keno Edwards Picture Show. So they're weird in that they're one scene from a movie with no context, and the dialogue is exactly the same, but the context is all confusing. So they're weird. They're not exactly easy to watch.
That sounds really cool, actually.
It's really fun.
I do like things that are like little. I like shorts a lot. There are little tastes of stories that are just enough to be like, oh, that was really nice. It's like tapas.
Yeah. I wanted to make these be like, oh, I want to see the rest of that movie. Mm-hmm. Like I did a scene from Blade Runner as a Western. I had a lot of Western clothes, so I also did Tootsie as a Western. Was another one. I did a scene from Diner where all the guys are sitting around the diner talking about their day, but I made them all women in matching bridesmaids dresses, and there's a dead groom on the floor the whole time.
I want to see that.
They're kind of fun in their own kind of like blast of nonsense kind of way. So anyway, that got me thinking about recasting these traditional men's roles as women and what that does to the story, because there are like female-led Westerns, but they're all like revenge. They're just one story. They're all like revenge for the guy who killed my husband. They're all the same.
Mhm.
There was even like a Soderbergh Western a couple years ago that came out on Netflix where it's like about a town of women where all the men are dead. And it's just this town of women. I was like, you're stealing my idea. That's what I want to do. And then the actual movie is about two guys trying to get revenge on each other and it has nothing to do with the town of women. That's just like the backdrop, and it's really about men.
Okay. My idea is safe. My idea is safe.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's interesting. Those are stories that need to be told.
I feel like I mean, obviously I like movies. Who doesn't like movies? But I'm not a big, I'm not like knowledgeable at all when it comes to film or anything. But I feel like from people who were really into it, there are these movies I hear over and over again as really influential movies. Do you feel like any of those that you hear a lot you would disagree with, or are there any that don't get mentioned where you're just like, why is this one not mentioned? Like this movie.
Well, when people ask me what my favorite filmmaker is, it's like Roger Corman, who made a bunch of schlocky movies in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and operated on a low budget and kind of discovered a lot of talent, but also nickel and dimed everyone to death. So I love Roger Corman movies. People ask what my favorite movie is. It's called It Conquered the World.
Mhm.
It's a monster movie from the 50s. It's got this monster in it, which is named Beulah. So yeah, like my influences are certainly not the usual influences. I don't get the love of 70s movies. I know it changed how movies were made and how, how storytelling was done in movies. I understand that, but they're no fun to sit through. Like,
that is refreshing to hear, actually, because I do want to have fun when I watch a movie, because
right?
it is a bit, for me, it's a bit of escapism. Like, oh, I want a break. I want to be in a story or in a world, and
Yeah.
that would not be really depressing. That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly room for that. Those movies should be made and have an audience, and good for them. But yeah, I need something to hook me.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I make monster movies and westerns and that kind of stuff.
Are there any outliers to that rule where like you really like these genres, but there are a couple movies where like, okay, but this movie is good. I love that movie.
I like this COVID quarantine world. Like I can't watch horror movies like I used to. My genre of choice now is like teen coming of age dramas, which is ridiculous.
Let's hear some favorites.
But I need some innocence in the world. That feels like there's no innocence left in the world, and just like I'm just craving some kind of youthful, vibrant innocence in the world, and it feels like there isn't any. So yeah, let's see. End of the Fucking World on Netflix is really good. Sorry, cussing.
Don't.
Let's see. I'm gonna blank. What else? Oh, Sex Education.
Yes.
Really,
Yeah.
I love that actor kid. He's been in several things that I'll just follow him around and watch whatever he does.
I have people like that too. If I see someone, I'm like, I will watch this.
Yeah, blanking on his name. What else? There's one about a comic book, a girl who has superpowers. It's based on a comic book, but I'm going to blank on what that's called. It stars the actress who was in the Nancy Drew movie I also watched, which is not good.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm also blanking on it.
Yeah, so tough question because I can't remember things.
Well, all right, guys, we are going to call it. Thanks to everyone who watched today, and thank you so much for talking to me today and taking some time. This is really fun.
Sure. Go out and make stuff. It's fun. It's a lot of work, but it's fun.
Well, all right, guys, I will see you next time. Thank you so much.